Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to episode 18. In today's guest, I'm here with the legendary Tim Jacobus. How you doing today, dude?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Oh man, thank you so much for being on the show. I'm really excited about this show right here.
That's great.
So, what was your process for doing the covers? Back then there was no digital. You had to do this all by hand, correct?
Yep, that's right. Yeah, this was the very first Goosebumps was in 19. My first start at a Goosebumps cover was in 1991. The first cover didn't come out till 92, so we were always. I was always 6 months ahead of the releases. Back then. Digital was in its real infancy, and nobody was really using it at that time
Right.
for graphics. So I worked with pencils and paper. I would do pencil sketches and submit them. The art directors would pick the ones that they wanted, and then eventually they would end up on illustration board. They were done in acrylic paint. They were approximately 20 by 20, so the original art's pretty big. Acrylic paint is great. It dries real fast, and what I was doing was very typical. A lot of the guys in the illustration field were working in acrylics because acrylics dry fast and they dry permanent. So
Right.
You can ship it, and people can handle it, and there's no real chance of anything getting wrecked.
Right. So, what was your how did you come up with such an amazing color palette for when you did these covers?
Well, when we first started, it was something I had done another series of books. They were referred to as Women in Jeopardy, and they were always about a woman who, some mom somewhere, and she would stumble onto something and end up, figuring out the big crime or the big, murder mystery or something. And I started to play with the perspective in those drawings, giving it the way worm's eye view, low view perspective.
Right.
And then I just started, they were mostly supposed to be dramatic, so there were a lot of night scenes, a lot of dark stuff. And I just figured out kind of quickly, and I didn't invent it. I learned it from other artists like Greg Hildebrandt and a couple other guys, where in your darks and your shadows, start to fill them in with colors. Don't just make it black. Black works, but it doesn't give vibrance. So I started to fill my shadow sides with blues and purples, and it gave the art some real form. Now, once we started doing that in Goosebumps, then it just became a giant color theory experiment. I just started to just go crazy trying all different combinations of colors. And, the goal for myself was never do the same color theory twice. So, I also didn't expect to end up doing 100 covers. So it got harder and harder as time went on to not repeat.
Right. So now everybody knows that you did all the original Goosebump covers besides number 2 and number 9. What was the story behind those two?
Book number 2 was done by another artist named Jim Thiessen, and that's Stay Out of the Basement. Scholastic, when I say they, were trying to decide who was going to do the Goosebumps covers.
Okay.
And Jim was more of a traditional horror illustrator, and I was not. I had no horror background. I had done a couple of other series with a couple other covers with them, but I just had the style. So they decided I'd do book 1 and he would do book 2, and they liked the saturated colors that I was using, because there was a fear that Goosebumps was going to be too scary for the audience.
Okay.
And they thought that the colors kind of set it off or toned it down.
Right.
So that was the reason why he had done book number 2. And then book number 9, something happened, like I went on vacation, or it was early on, and, we just got caught off guard. And, I just wasn't able to do that. But in 2000, 2001, sometime around there, Scholastic came back to me and said, hey, let's have you redo those covers. So there are versions of Stay Out of the Basement and Be Careful What You Wish For that I did do. So I can rightfully claim that I've done them all, even though I didn't do the original number 2 and number 9.
And like as a kid growing up, like every other kid, I loved the Goosebump books. And my school used to have like this book fair thing. So my mom and my dad would give me like a ton of money, give me like $20 to go to the book fair at school, and I'd run right to the Goosebump section and grab all the Goosebump books that I could get. End up coming home with like 4 or 5 Goosebump books.
Well, that was it. Yeah, I mean, that was a huge part of our success, was that, the Scholastic Book Club was well established in all the schools. So the Goosebumps books were being pipelined in. You guys couldn't escape them. They were everywhere. But and what parent's not going to give their kids some money to buy books?
Right, correct. Right, they get books. They're learning to read, and then we get like all these awesome stories and the amazing cover work. So it all worked out.
Definitely.
So what was your reaction, like back in like the 90s? What was your reaction to the to them doing the Goosebumps TV shows and bringing your monsters to life?
That was pretty cool, because I wasn't surprised that they were spinning it off to do a TV series. I found it way cool because, again, they were putting out a TV series. They were trying to crank them out, however often they were doing it, once a week. And, it wasn't like they had this massive budget to do things. So I always tuned in to go, well, how close are they going to come to my original art? Right. And sometimes they were incredibly spot on, and other times they just did their own thing. And I was as fascinated with their version of it as I was with my own. It was cool to see somebody else's interpretation of exactly the same story.
Right. Right, and I loved
it. I've done now, but I like going back now and taking a look at those things on Netflix, because, to see that they had such a limited budget, but they're cool, they're campy, they're really fun to go back and watch now.
Do you have a favorite episode?
Yeah, I like the one, the creature from, only because it looks like my creature. The one where, You Can't Scare Me, the Mudmen that are coming out of it. Yeah, I really like that one.
Yeah, that was a good one. My favorite's always been the Haunted Mask. That was my favorite one.
Yeah, that's a classic. I mean, Curly Beth and the Mask, you can't go wrong. Like that one definitely got the most traction.
Right. So, I know out of all your covers, I mean, an artist takes all their stuff, and they love their stuff. It's like, you do a piece of art and then you cherish it. So if you can't pick, I understand, but like, what do you think one of your top favorite covers were that you painted?
So it's funny. Over the years, it's changed. I go back and, it's not like I know my work, and then there's times where you don't look at it for long periods of time. And a couple of years ago, I had to go back, and I redid my website. So you're rescanning your artwork, and you're taking a look at it again. And the one that kind of caught my eye recently is The Beast from the East.
Yes.
And what's different about that is, in all the Goosebumps covers, there's always something bad happening. There's some drama, and that one's the most undramatic piece out there. It's a little bit more trippy, and it's weirder than most of them. I like, again, and if there's anyone that has saturated colors in it, man, it's that one.
Yeah, definitely. So, what was the story? I know I don't remember which. I can't think of the name right now, but it's the cover had the 2 gnomes on it, and I think you painted it. The original, the gnome was picking his nose, but they wanted to cancel that out for some reason.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. In the original, the gnome who was scratching the side of his head was originally picking his nose, and everybody loved it. And like it was going through the process. Through the steps of getting ready to go to print. And right at the last second, somebody decided, again, Scholastic had all those ins with the school. And I think somebody just got unnerved and just decided that, maybe we better back this off a little bit. So, yeah, they handed me back the painting, and I had to take his finger out of his nose.
Oh, that would have been great.
I mean, I had a lot of freedom doing the Goosebumps stuff, and the fact that, that's one of maybe two changes I ever had to do. And if the worst thing I had to do is keep somebody from picking their nose, I was doing pretty good.
That's right. And I know R.l.stine was pumping those stories out, so you must have had to keep up to doing all those covers with them.
Absolutely, yeah. He could do. He was doing them one a month, and I was starting the painting at the same time he was writing the book, so I had no idea what the book was about. He would give me a couple of sentences, maybe a paragraph describing what it's going to be, and then I would just run with it from there. So I was always surprised, as anybody else, to go back and reread the stories and find out what actually happened at the end, because I never knew what happened at the end.
Right, that's awesome. So, Tim, we're in 2019 now. Did you think that in the 90s, Goosebumps would be what it is today?
No, of course not. So at first, I had done books for a number of years before Goosebumps hit. And, you do your book covers, and, my family members would know some of the books that I did, but, nobody, I couldn't say, hey, I'm working on, this mystery book, and people just wouldn't know it.
Right.
To then have, Goosebumps do the takeoff in the 90s and be able to say, yeah, hey, I work on Goosebumps, and everybody would know what that was. That was amazing in itself. But then, like you say, here we are 20, 25 years later, and people are still talking about it. There's movies coming out, and people are genuinely fond of it. That's the part that I think is cool. Is it's not something that you look back on and say, oh yeah, that was something stupid that I did when I was a kid, and they're kind of corny. Like, everybody still looks back on it as being something way cool, and nothing surprises me more, and I think it's just as cool too.
Right. So I read my first Goosebumps book when I was 9 years old. So that was 1999, and I'm 29 now, and I still have the same love for Goosebumps as I did as a little kid. It's so cool.
Yeah, and that's and you're not alone. So I think that's the most fascinating part, and I think that's amazing. It's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, it's so cool that like you said, you never thought that Goosebumps would evolve into such a crazy fan base. Now there's movies, and there's collectors that have all the books, and there's T-shirts, and there's everything for the movie. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah, all of it. It's yeah, again. I started doing comic conventions last year.
Yep.
And now I get a lot more chance to meet people your age who grew up on Goosebumps, and it's fun to see how much happiness this stuff brought to them, and see it on their face, and because it was fun for me too. But I did it by myself in the house, and
right.
To be able to walk out and have people get excited about it is really great.
So, Tim, my last question is are you working on any new projects? And like you said, you just started doing conventions. Are you going to be at any conventions this year coming up for the rest of the year?
Yeah. We're always trying to get into more conventions. I'm booked definitely in 2 right now. They're both in August. There's one in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. It's called MonsterCon, which is more of a horror-based one, which is obviously I fit right in there. I'm kind of the training wheels guy at the horror show.
Yep.
And the big one that I'm in is Dragon Con, which is down in Atlanta, and that's a huge show, and that's over the holiday weekend at the end of August. So those are the 2 main ones.
Nice.
Art-wise, I'm always putting out new pieces. I can't tell you. Unfortunately, most of the art that I've done isn't released yet, so I can't be the guy telling you that this stuff is coming out. that because that's just cool. I just finished an album cover on Friday, and I'm always working on something. So that's the other nice thing now is people, like you said, are going back and go, oh yeah, Goosebumps was pretty cool, and oh, I think I remember the guy's name who painted the covers, and they're coming and checking out my artwork now, and I get just as great response from the new stuff as I do from the classic stuff.
That's awesome. Tim, thank you so much for taking the time to do this interview for the show.
No problem, Andrew. This was great. It was great talking to you.
Hey, great talking to you. Have a good day, man.
All right, you take care.